Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is the SCB Steelers Podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And we have now had a chance to take a look at the film from Sunday's unfortunate home opener loss to the Las Vegas, don't call them Oakland Raiders. We're actually going to experiment a little bit with some video tonight as we continue to get more and more into this. You'll also notice on the ticker at the bottom too, we got score of the game, and then also as part of working with the Pigskin Podcast Network, DraftKings is heavily involved with that, and I'll make sure I mention it a little bit later in the show too. But really awesome opportunity there to get signed up using that app, and you just use the TPPN code and get yourself into wagering a little on sports. And I actually did this about a week ago, and I don't wager much. I'll be honest. I just kind of like seeing if I'm right or wrong. So I do a couple bucks here and there, and it's kind of fun when you get it right, and it's really infuriating when you get it wrong. But anyway, Ian, as usual, joining me. You might notice he is Turd Ferguson without the hat tonight. And
rest in peace, Norm Macdonald.
Yes, in honor of the great Norm Macdonald, who passed away last week, and highly underrated guy. If you had never had a chance to see him on Saturday Night Live, and a few other great items as well. So, Ian, you were there. You were in attendance.
I was. And took my son to the game. It was his first game that he ever went to. So
that's right. That's right. But and as wonderful as that is, what the fans really want to know is what you're drinking tonight.
Well, I am drinking my Oktoberfest beer that came out of my keg, but
nice.
I am drinking it out of a horn that my wife got for me for my birthday a couple years ago. So this is actually made out of a ram's horn, I believe. So it is a Viking mug.
That's got to be a buffalo horn
or buffalo horn or something.
Yeah, that's bigger than a ram's horn.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. But it's a horn.
It's glorious.
It is.
I know that. Any Viking would be proud. My wife was in Illinois last week, and we always usually make a stop, and she did the good deed and stopped in Indiana because they're the only state around me that has Yuengling. So I've got a very nice Yuengling light lager tonight.
Nice.
And now we have a little refrigerator under the table here too. So
that's very convenient.
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm fully stocked. I'm fully stocked now and ready to go. So this could get off the rails real quick. What was the vibe in the stadium, Ian? Because it just, this offense is so frustrating to watch right now. Then with the injuries, it seemed like a really down crowd for a lot of that game.
It was, and it was really hot there too. I mean, the whole, you figure most of the stadium was in kind of direct sunlight for most of the game with a 1:00 start. The side where I'm on, the visitors sideline, was in direct sunlight for the entire game. And, so in addition, people were hyped at the game. People were really excited. The other thing that didn't get a lot of publicity was that, like, it was a disaster getting into the stadium. It was like the guy who sits next to me, like, tailgates in the main parking lot, and he's like, I've left this lot at 12:45 before and been in my seat by 1:00 for a game. He's like, we left at 12:15 and he got there like halfway through the first quarter.
Oh my gosh.
Gate A getting in was an absolute clusterfuck. Like, it was I came in gate B and it was pretty backed up, but like they came on the loudspeaker and said, like, if you're waiting in line, go to gate B because it's the fastest one. And I'm standing there thinking, like, this is the fastest one. It probably took us 20 minutes to get in at gate B. And I was like, this is the fastest one. Holy crap. What's going on at these other gates? It was like, they were totally unprepared for 65,000 people to come into the stadium.
What was going on? Was because they do all digital ticket now,
all
right?
Digital ticketing. Yeah. So after the game, there were some articles that were like, some people didn't have their tickets downloaded and had to like pull them up when they were going through the line or something. And, but they, from what I heard too, from other people that were like trying to get in gate A, like one of the, like there was 6 lines to get in, but then like 2 of the machines were broken, so they had to consolidate like 6 lines down to 4, and it was just it was a mess. So yeah, but it was
indicative of the entire day.
Yes, yeah, pretty much. So I think for some people, not only did they get in late, and people that like left early, like the dude who sits next to me, that like he was like, I left a half hour earlier than I normally did, and it took me an hour in line to get into the game. Like, that's just crazy. So there was some of that. They did start slow, and I mean they were missing 5 starters on defense if you count Tuitt, right?
Yeah.
So Tuitt was out, and then Hayden and Bush didn't play,
right,
and then within the first half of the game, you lose Tyson Alualu and TJ Watt. So if you want to say, all right, how many starters can we lose on defense before we see a significant drop off? I guess that number is less than 5, because but I mean that's like half your starting defense too. I mean, that's a significant number of not only key starters, but like those are 5 of your highest paid defensive players as well. That they're the guys you've invested in to be out there and make plays, and if they all get hurt, then you're in trouble, which was another puzzling thing about why Tomlin chose to punt and trust the defense, because not only did we get out time of possession by almost like 8-9 minutes, but his defense had been out there a ton, and they're missing all those starters. Like, and my 8-year-old who came to the game with me, it was funny. We called my parents on the ride home because they're the ones who gave us the tickets, and he said thank you and all that, and they asked him how he enjoyed the game. He was like, it was great except for the stupidest punt ever. I don't know why they didn't go for it on 4th down. I was just like, he's 8 and gets it. It's like it was so he was so mad. He kept talking about them punting. Like, he was so mad that they punted. It was just so I guess I've done something right as a parent, that
absolutely
he was so mad about it. But really, honestly, like the vibe was pretty good, and especially like even in the first half, when we held them to a field goal after they were right down the goal line, people were pumped up about it. I mean, people thought that was a big win. We held them to a field goal after they were right on the goal line, and we were only down 9-7 at halftime. Najee's touchdown to get us right back in it got a huge a huge boom from the crowd. It was a good crowd, but then like when you just can't get stops on defense, and then people in the 4th quarter, they don't get stops, they're down by 2 scores, they punt it away, people started leaving, and I don't blame them. Sit out in the sun all day, want to get out of the heat, and I mean, we stayed till the very end, but nevertheless, like it's just one of those things where it was if this had been a October game or a November game, I think the durability of not only the fans but also the defense probably would have been a little better too, because when you're out there playing football in 90-degree direct sun weather with no cloud cover, like it wears on you as a defense too.
Oh, absolutely. And you could see the intensity of the sun. And I think, it would have been back up behind you, the overhang up there. And I think it's the 500 level seats there. I think they were the only ones that had any kind of decent shade, based on the sun. And so obviously it was coming down hard on the players, and, but yeah, hot day. And I've been in there before. In fact, I was there with my son, I think, for a game a couple years ago. And, that was preseason game, and was it hot.
Yeah. I mean, you just sit there and bake. It's
you
just,
do. You do. You feel like a chicken in the oven. I mean, you know what it feels like. Let's just, you mentioned this already.
One other thing I want to say, really nice touch on the Steelers part. That they, before the game, they had a moment of silence for Patricia Rooney and Tunchilkin, who we lost this year. But also in the Great Hall, they've kind of redesigned it a little bit. They took out the walk of fame that they had there before and put in a store to sell things, of course. But they kept kind of those lockers and on the side, and in the one locker they had like Tunch and Wolf's jersey hanging next to each other, which was a really nice touch. Yeah, I took a picture of it. I'll have to share it on social media, but I was like, oh, this is cool. It's nice they did that.
Very cool.
Very classy move by the Steelers.
Yeah, no, it was. And let me let me cover the injury report real quick as of today. And then I want to get
growing problem.
It is. There's a little glimmer of hope here because today Big Ben was limited. So I'm not going to get one way or another with him just yet. Highsmith still did not participate, so he's going to have to show something tomorrow. Ebron was a full participant. Hayden and Bush were both full participants, which is good. Yeah, yes. Which is good. Watt limited again. So, it's improving a little bit. And I think, as you and I were talking about before we started the show, if you can get Hayden and Bush back and maybe have to sacrifice a Highsmith, you do it. Mm-hmm. You take those two.
Yeah. And those soft tissue injuries, those groin injuries, those hamstring pulls, things like that. I mean, those are tough ones to like work through because you risk kind of severely re-injuring yourself if you if you come back too soon, or if you and the other thing with soft tissue injuries is not only the re-injury factor of the existing one, but sometimes you try and overcompensate, right? So if you're, if you have a pulled hamstring, or if your, groin is tight or something, maybe you lean a little harder on the other side or push a little harder, and then you pull something on the other side because you're not on balance anymore. You're trying to preserve the one side and you overstrain the other. So it's, the one thing I'll say about Ben's injury, though, being his left pectoral is his non-throwing arm. So we've seen Ben play through some pretty significant pain before. That pain management for him has never been a question. So if he can functionally throw the ball, I think he'll be fine. And really, I mean, he showed in this game he can still he still has the arm to throw the ball down the field. And honestly, he threw 4 pretty good deep balls. And I'm a big Chase Claypool fan, but at some point, Chase has to win more than half of these 50-50 balls. I mean, I know they're called 50-50 balls, but I agree. He's the one that really sticks out was the third down in the first half, right? That it's 3rd and 4 at like the Raiders 38-yard line. You're in positive territory. I don't like taking a deep shot there in third down.
I don't either. Get me the first down.
Get the first down and then take the deep shot on first down.
Yep.
And I was talking with Derek on Twitter about this too. You'd rather get the first down, because 38-yard line's fringe of field goal range too, which Chris Boswell showed later in the game he could make it from there, but nevertheless, that take if you're going to go for it on 4th down, I'm okay with taking the deep shot on 3rd.
Right.
But Claypool had that ball basically go through his hands. Yeah, maybe the defender got his hand in there to break it up, but he got a hand on it in the end zone, right? He should catch that ball. Yeah. And then they go for it on 4th down and run a play where you've got 3 out of your 5 receivers running 10 plus yards down the field on 4th and 4, which doesn't do you any good. Like and the other 2 were both running out routes. And so it, and it was covered. Those 2 were covered well by the Raiders. So Ben didn't throw it there and had to double clutch, and then, kind of had some pressure coming at him and had to chuck it up the other way. And all of a sudden now you've, wasted 2 downs and given the Raiders back the ball at the 38-yard line. So, it's one of those things where that's the play I kept coming back to. I'm like, man, if Claypool catches that ball for a touchdown, it changes the whole game. And, he's got to catch more than half of these deep balls.
And to me, the one that everybody was crediting Hayward with making a nice play on, and it was a nice play. He did what you do as a defensive back. You rake the ball from the receiver, and I just look at it from the standpoint of, after everything that we watched of Claypool at Notre Dame, and then what we saw him last year's rookie season, those are balls he catches, and you almost just wonder if he's just maybe taking it for granted a little bit, that okay, I got it in my hands. This is good. And he just isn't securing it as tightly as he needs to. I mean, he's got to catch some of those. And it's just, again, I'm not trying to defend Ben or anything, but the balls were catchable footballs. And they just have to be caught, because, as you said, they're game-changing type things. And as far as taking the deep shots on 3rd, 4th, 3rd and 5, okay, once in a while, I don't have a problem with that. But when your offense is struggling, your defense is dying for a break, take the first down. I don't understand why we do that so often.
Yeah.
Play the 2-down game like you were talking about. Get me at least 3 or 4 on third down. So I now I have a makeable 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 at the very least if I don't get a first down.
Yeah. Or, at the 38-yard line, even if you get 3 yards, then you're in, like 51, 52-yard field goal range.
Which is definitely in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, 56 at Heinz. I mean, that was a kick, man.
It was.
He crushed that.
Could you see the replay in the stadium?
Yeah. Oh,
Did they show because it wasn't by much, but it made it.
Yeah, and I mean, he was kicking in the closed end, and but still, longest kick in Heinz Field history, man. That was great. That was something.
Yeah, it was great. What you mentioned this early, right in the beginning. What in the hell was Tomlin thinking on 4th down in the 4th quarter?
I have no idea.
I mean, why didn't he just say? I would have had so much more respect for Tomlin had he just said in the post game, you know what, guys, I screwed that one up. If he would have just said that, I would have been like, okay, done. Yeah. But instead, he tried. Well, we wanted to play field position. You're playing field position with a defense missing 5 starters. Your defense has been whipped, worked over. They're tired. It's 4th and less than a yard. For God's sakes, get the first down, people.
Yeah. And I understand that we were kind of getting whipped up front, but still, you have a running back you drafted in the first round. You have a 6'5" quarterback that's 250 pounds. You've got a fullback. You got a fullback that you're paying $4 million to, or $2 million, or however much, $3 million to sit on the bench. Like, do something. You know, like, show a sign of life. And I think that was it, more so that it was just listless in the 4th quarter. They weren't showing any life. Like, when they showed life, the fans were into it. And I mentioned Najee's touchdown. That touchdown, he had that route all day. Like, they only threw it to him, I think, twice, but that little, run out of the backfield, that option route where you check the linebacker. If he's cheating inside, you cut outside. If he's cheating outside, you cut inside. He had that option route all day. He was open on that all stinking day. And they only threw it to him twice, and that's and part of it too. This is the hard thing, right? Najee's winning on that route all day, and he winds up scoring a touchdown on it later. But you get and this is where I go back and forth with like the analytics people and the PFF people, right? They're like, Ben's average depth of target is so short, and this and that, and it's like, well, if you got a guy who's winning on a route all the time, why not throw him the ball? Right. Do it until they prove they can stop it, right? Or don't like, force things that aren't there. But to the Raiders' credit too, I mean, they played pretty much single high safety the whole game. They played press man on the outside. And it's the formula to beat the Steelers.
It is the Achilles heel right now.
Single high, and actually, I saw a stat that someone put out that I think the Raiders have like the deepest average safety depth in the league. Like, their single high was playing like really far back, and you want
center field single high.
Yeah, and it was like, why didn't the Steelers stretch the middle of the field? And it's like, well, that guy. Part of it was conceptually, right? That anytime you ran a post to the middle, that guy was there to double it, and it just wasn't open. I watch the tape of the game, and it's like, okay, that wasn't open. I understand why they didn't throw the deep middle. It wasn't open.
Right.
And what they had was one-on-one coverage on the outside, and they hit one deep ball to Deontay and one deep ball to Claypool, but they could have hit a couple more. But those deep balls they hit were game-changing plays. And it's like, okay, if they're giving you one-on-one, you trust your guys to win those matchups and see what you can do.
Absolutely.
But one of the really interesting things to me was, Max Starks has taken Tunch's place on the In the Locker Room show that they do every week.
Right.
And one of the
Steelers tackle.
Yep. Yes. So still 2 linemen with Wolf and Starks now. But one of the things that Max Starks was talking about this week was how Matt Canada's scheme may actually be hurting the running game a little bit. And he said, there's some things he does that helps, but some things that are hurting that. One of the things, like the motion can be good because it gives you information before the snap about what what kind of coverages things are in. But sometimes you've got like you're running guys out of the play that you can motion a guy into either a better position or you can motion him into a worse position. And some of the times in the running game, he's motioning guys into a worse position.
Well, yeah, and you broke down some film. You've got a clip of
I did.
exactly what you're just talking about here.
Yes, I do. All right, so here we go. I'm going to try and share this. And all right, so this is actually the second play of the game, where we're in a 2-by-2 set, right? Two receivers, everyone's packed in pretty tight. But you see here, the Raiders have this winds up being a run to the left for Najee. But the Raiders have basically 4 guys here on this side of the line. We've got 4 guys plus the center, so 5 on 4 to block. There's a safety kind of hanging out over here as well. But what's going to happen is Claypool's going to come in motion to this side, so then it's going to become a 3-by-1 set. And you'll see what happens is Claypool comes in motion. So up in the corner here, this defensive back sneaks in. This guy who was guarding Claypool shifts to the middle. So what this tells you is, okay, they're in either some type of zone or matchup coverage, right? Because we've now got 3 wide receivers here, and the 2 linebackers that were in shifted over to this side. So they're either dropping into a zone or they're just matching up. And, if they're in man, then, this guy in the middle who shifted over is now on Claypool.
Yep.
And they just shifted, or they're in zone, which is probably more likely.
I think so too.
That they're in a short zone. But nevertheless, now you've shifted with 3 guys on this side. So now with this defensive back dropping down, we'll count them 1, 2, 3, 4, essentially 5 Raiders on this half of the middle. Field. Yep. Count the Mac the mic. Yep. Count the mic in the middle. And then, with blockers, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4. We shifted a guy over, and now it's 4 on 5 essentially on this side. And, okay, maybe Najee is supposed to beat the first guy. Maybe the first guy is the running backs guy, right? So what happens is
we do see more offensive systems where they expect the running back to beat at least one guy.
Yes.
So it's not like the old days of football when the idea was I'm going to get more hats on their hats so my running back can get through. Right. They expect backs to beat at least one guy.
Yes.
That's just the way it is.
Yes, that's correct. But what happened also with this shift in coverage was they're running in an outside zone play. So Freiermuth is blocking down on the defensive end. You got Kevin Dotson here having to perform a reach block, which for those who may not know what a reach block is, it's when you're lined up to the inside of someone, but you actually have to block their outside shoulder. So Dotson here from his guard position has to get around to the outside here of 77 and block his outside shoulder.
It's tough to do.
It's really tough to do. Yep. Yes. With Freiermuth blocking down, Dan Moore's going to loop out and around and essentially become a lead blocker on this play. And then here's the difficulty. Kevin Dotson, after he snaps, or not Kevin Dotson, Kendrick Green. Yeah. Kendrick Green, after he snaps the ball, now has to come out and block this guy, right? However, this guy is a defensive back. Before the snap, when Claypool was lined up over here, the guy shading basically right here in the defense was this inside linebacker. Right. This linebacker is now shifted to the middle. So this guy is a defensive back. So Kendrick Green has to get from his center position out to block this defensive back. And as we roll the tape, here we see it happen, right? Freiermuth blocks down. Dotson does get around and perform that reach block.
It looks good right now, Ian. I mean, it looks good.
Dan Moore is pulling around to the outside. He's got a lane. And here comes Kendrick Green having to block this defensive back. So just watch Kendrick Green here. We'll play it slowly. Green gets there. Okay. Tries to reach his hands out. You've got Dan Moore here. Yep. Who's got this guy in his sights. Okay. Freiermuth's got this sealed. Dotson has this sealed. Trey Turner's doing a decent job here. And Green just whiffs. The guy that Green whiffs on, oops, go back a little bit more here. The guy that Green whiffs on trips up Najee a little
Abraham.
bit, and everybody else cleans him up. Yeah. So, oops. So, yeah, but
what it does is, I mean, it really illustrates exactly how close they can be at times to
Yes.
really breaking off a big run, but it
Yes.
just isn't happening.
They were that, like, if Green makes that block, and it's not solely Kendrick Green's fault either.
No.
Like, I watched a bunch of tape of the running game, and one play it's Green, one play it's Dan Moore, one play it's Trey Turner, one play it's Kevin Dotson, and one play it's Chooks.
Yep.
You know, it's football is the ultimate team game where
Absolutely.
10
So true.
guys can do their job
Yep.
perfectly, and if one guy screws up, the whole play gets destroyed, especially in the running game. So it's, you know, it's one of those things where you need everyone performing, you know, what they can do to the best level. And, you know, but that's just a microcosm where, you know, we had numbers on that side, but you shift Claypool out to the other side, and now all of a sudden, you know, the defense shifts a little bit, and that's a situation where, you know, maybe Ben has to be able to make the call of, hey, they shifted, we're going to run this to the strong side now instead of to the weak side, right? We're going to run this to the tight end side instead of the non-tight end side, or something like that, where, you know, you're like, okay, hey, we've got numbers on the other side of the field, we got a hat on a hat, let's run something over there, you know, rather than continuing to run. And we did a lot of that. Like, we ran a lot of weak side runs, and I was just like, as I went back and watched it, I was like, holy smokes, we ran a ton of weak side running plays. And it was just like, you know, it just kind of blew my mind of just how many weak side runs we had.
Well, and to me, teams that are going to do that typically are a little more veteran,
Yes.
and are going to have just overall more experienced guys when you're running weak side like that. I mean, you know, in that play you just showed, Freiermuth is a rookie and does a good job.
Yes.
Dan Moore's coming out and doing everything that he's supposed to be doing. Dotson's a second-year player and gets a really tough reach block and gets it. And you're exactly right. There are so many instances, especially in last week's film, where it's one guy, literally one guy just doesn't quite get his job completed and everything breaks down.
Yes.
And so I think what it does is it helps all of us with our perspective that it's not this collective effort by the line to suck every play.
Yes.
It's just a matter of one or two guys not getting the job done. And we saw the same thing in pass protection too. You know, you'll see two or three guys doing excellent work, and then you see one or two guys getting steamrolled or getting juked or something. And until that changes, until we get everybody on the same page and it's all consistent, that's the type of stuff that's going to keep happening to this team right now. Let me remind everybody real quick that you are listening to the SCB Steelers Podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. DEK serves Broward and the southern Palm Beach counties, whether it's commercial, industrial, residential, or condos. Contact DEK Roofing today by visiting dekroofing.com. All right, where do you want to go next?
So
Ian?
let's talk about a good play that we had offensively.
Absolutely, because there are some good plays occasionally.
There are some good plays too, and this is an example of what can happen when everything goes right. So, let's see if you let me share my screen again.
Oh, if I was actually paying attention to the thing that came up there, geez, oh man.
Yeah, well, if you there we go.
Maybe
All right. So
beer.
this is a this is another weak side run, but this is one that gets blocked well. So this time we've got two tight ends in the game with both Zach Gentry and Pat Freiermuth.
Yep.
And you know, so we're loaded up on this side, right, with four blockers. But you see Oakland's kind of shaded, or not Oakland, the Vegas is kind of shading this one. Actually, one of the referees made that mistake during the game too. They called a penalty and they called it on Oakland, which was hilarious. But at any rate, you know, we've got, even though this is the heavy side, you know, the Raiders aren't necessarily overstacking the weak side here. But what we're going to see once again is this is another zone blocking type play where you've got a lot of linemen moving around. So you know, just if we kind of watch the linemen here, right, we've got Trey Turner blocking down, we've got Okorafor coming out, we've got Dotson pulling around, we've got Green doing a good job blocking in the middle. And then what happens is you've got with Dotson coming around and one defender over here.
Is that Crosby or Nassib? Might be Nassib.
Yeah. Dotson gets that block, that pull block on the corner, and then you've got Freiermuth coming around also from the outside to be the lead blocker, and now you've got a hat on a hat, and Najee gets to spring it and get some space. So now, Najee didn't actually have to beat a guy until he got to the second level.
Right.
And that's what can happen when these things get blocked well. But once again, right, look at what that play took. It took Turner blocking down. It took Chooks getting out to the second level to block the linebacker. It took Dotson, who's not super mobile, coming around the formation and getting that block on the edge defender. It took Freiermuth coming from his outside tight end position, looping through to become the lead blocker and take out the linebacker. And then you get a hat on a hat, and Najee gets 12, 13 yards before anyone even touches him. Yeah. So
if you really want to nitpick, you can say, hey, Zach Gentry, you gotta hang on to that guy just a little bit longer, and it's that much bigger of a run. But I'll take the 12 yards right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we only had 2 of those runs during the game that actually broke for more than a handful of yards.
Right.
The other one was a pitch play to the outside that was once again well blocked. And that was a case actually where here I'll show this one too because I have it. Let me pull this one up. But that was just another case of Najee just beating the guy he had to beat in that case.
Right.
So we're on the other end zone view here, but this time they actually run to the strong side, right? You've got the guys on the weak side, but now you actually have blockers on the strong side. This is a pitch out to Najee. Najee's going to get the corner. One guy gets through right there. Got, I think around Claypool was the guy who missed him. Yep. But you've got a decent block here. You've got a lead blocker out here in space, and Najee makes the guy miss and gets another 12, 13 yards out of it. So if we watch it just again at full speed, even though Claypool misses a block there, Najee still has the angle to beat the defensive back and get out there.
And to be honest, that's a horrible miss by Claypool. To let that guy go inside of you. I mean, that play could have been stopped dead in its tracks for no gain because of that one missed block.
Right. Well, it's like that block we showed on the very first play, right? That Kendrick Green missed that block. And basically the same thing happened, that Najee got tripped up enough that the other guys coming across were able to catch him in the wash. That play, Najee was able to, have enough of a head of steam that he, beat the guy to the outside and got around him for 12 yards. So, Ben had a tweet earlier this week that basically said, like, Najee Harris is a Pro Bowl caliber back that's playing behind an offensive line that continues to make so many mistakes that they just aren't giving him the opportunities he needs, to make things happen. And it is true that when you're getting hit, 6-7 yards maybe not 6-7 yards, when either you're getting hit in the backfield or when you can't even get a head of steam going, or even when you have to sidestep guys in the backfield, like it's hard to just get moving. And like we said, it's a team game, and it's not one guy that we can point to that's continually making mistakes, which is why I think when Tomlin was asked this week if he was going to make any changes on his offensive line, he said no, because you can't say like this guy sucks and needs to be replaced. They're taking turns making mistakes, right? Yeah. Everybody's making mistakes. So, and I think so in some respects, maybe with this young line, Matt Canada needs to simplify the scheme a little bit. All those plays we showed, there's a lot of moving pieces up front. It's they're not doing the power blocking thing of just blocking the guy in front of you. There's a lot of guys moving around and pull blocking and things like that. And I realize sometimes that's how you spring big runs too, that's kind of how the modern running game works. And they've got these more athletic offensive linemen now. That's why they drafted Kendrick Green. That's why they drafted Dan Moore, because those guys could do those kind of things. But, maybe at some point too, you just have to say, hey, we're going to simplify this a little bit. We're just going to put a hat on a hat and block straight ahead. and see if our guys can beat their guys, rather than asking, your rookie center to perform essentially a reach block on a defensive back that's lined up 6 yards off the line of scrimmage, and over by the tackle over there. It's like, all right, you have to snap the ball and then get out there on this defensive back that's a lot faster than you are, and hope you make that block so that Najee doesn't get, no gain and he can get something.
Are we what in the wide world of sports is going on with Derek Watt? Because Watt actually played for Matt Canada at Wisconsin and was used, I wouldn't say every down, but he was utilized big time by Canada. Why not use him? And I know people get frustrated. Well, if you use him, then you got to take a receiver or a tight end off the field. And it's like, okay, take Eric Ebron off the field. I mean, he's got one catch. He's got 4 targets. Give me a little bit of Derek Watt. I'm not asking to go back to the old days of double tights and I formation. That's not what I'm saying. But give me a little bit of Derek Watt, either blocking or catching the ball out of the backfield. I just don't see the problem here. What am I missing?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I would love to see it too. I mean, I'm a big fan of fullbacks, even in the modern game. I mean, there was a guy on Twitter today that was tweeting, videos of some of the plays the Raiders ran. And, when you looked at them, like some of the concepts they ran out of the personnel they ran them out of, like, are completely unexpected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how for years, the Patriots had their advantage, or even last year with the Browns, to their credit, had a good offensive game plan that, some of the stuff the Raiders they ran 4 verticals out of a 3 tight end set, right? Like, or maybe it was 1 wide receiver, but I think it was,
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was 4, but they ran 4 verticals with multiple tight ends on the field. They ran a corner route with a fullback where he ran came out of the backfield and ran a corner route. And that was the play Joe Schobert broke it up. But still, like, you don't expect a fullback to be running a 15-yard corner route. Like, those are the things in the modern NFL that you can exploit because people don't expect it. And, having motion before the snap is good. It gives you information. It gives you, it can create mismatches, but you have to be able to exploit them also. And that's just the thing that, and I realize it's only 2 games out of a 17-game season, but, I want to see us doing more to put guys in positions where they can succeed, right? Throw more crossing routes where guys can catch the ball as they're running. Don't throw these little sit down routes where guys are just sitting there and catch the ball and, are basically flat-footed and can't get any yards after the catch.
Point.
Like, you throw slants, you throw crossing routes, those kind of things that when guys can catch the ball as they're running forward, you already have a head of steam and some momentum and can actually get somewhere after the catch too.
Makes a huge difference.
There's
no doubt about it. Yeah.
And let me be clear too. Like, Mason Rudolph is not the answer. Mason Rudolph can't throw a crossing route. Mason Rudolph can't throw with anticipation or timing or anything. That I think, and I think I said this before, that like Chase Claypool could be a really, really good statistical receiver with Mason Rudolph at quarterback because he throws these sky balls to him.
Jump balls.
Yes. And as we were talking earlier about Claypool, one of the things I was thinking about was like, he's really good when he can use his body and be big and physical. But I wonder if, Ben's throwing to hit him in stride, right? And it seems like he plays smaller when he's trying to catch it in stride because he's trying to catch it and run at the same time. And that's how defensive backs get their hands in there. Whereas when Mason was throwing him these sky balls, he could just, he didn't have to run. He could just stop and out jump the defensive back. And maybe that's where he's better, is where he's just out jumping guys that, maybe his tracking the ball in the air needs some work still. But it's something to watch. It's a handful of plays, right? It's 3 plays over one game. Like, I'm not going to make a sweeping generalization after 3 plays in one game, but still, like, he needs to catch a couple more of these too as we go on in the season.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think he will. I think he will. I think that was a bit of an eye opener for him. And yeah, I won't beat the dead horse because we talked a little bit about it earlier, but he's got to come up with some of those.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, everybody, DraftKings is giving new customers right now $150 instantly when you bet $1 on any football game. So here's what you need to do. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN to receive $150 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's promo code TPPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL.
So one thing I'll say about DraftKings too, just I haven't bet with them personally, but I have friends that do.
Yeah.
They're really, really good about like with customer service. So
very good.
Last year there was I think it was a Monday night game between Tampa and Kansas City, and one of my friends bet on the like 2 first half touchdowns for Tyreek Hill, right? And that was the game where Tyreek Hill actually caught one, but it came out and they called it incomplete, but it was actually a catch. DraftKings, they didn't pay out the wager, but they refunded him his money, right? So they basically paid it out as a push. They said they should have called it a touchdown. The officials messed up, so we're just going to refund your money that you put into this bet. That it wasn't, they didn't pay it out as if he had won it, but they at least refunded his money. That they were like, you shouldn't have to lose this money because the officials screwed up. So DraftKings is really good about like customer service, things like that. That they are very user friendly, I'll say.
No, and you can't be user friendly when you're dealing with money.
Yeah,
for sure. Ian, the Bengals come to town this week. They're a little bit banged up too. T. Higgins, real good receiver, who Joe Burrow likes a lot, has not practiced at all this week. So they've got some issues. Their defense is, I think, a little underrated. It's played better than people thought. Now, granted, they played the Vikings in week 1, who have a decent offense, obviously good running game, and a couple of decent receivers. But then you've got last week, they came up a little short on their first road game in Chicago, who, the defense bailed Chicago out because the offense didn't do much. So I think any Steelers fan that just thinks this is going to be the same old Bengals, well, I hope it is. But I'm not anticipating that. I think that Cincinnati defense is going to be a little bit better. And hey, we know what they did to us last year when we went in there in December. We got beat by Ryan Finley, of all people, 27-17. So what are we looking for this week in terms of how to attack the Bengals and how to defend as well?
Yeah. So you mentioned that Bengals Vikings game. Here's a crazy stat I saw on Twitter. 6 of the last 10 ties in the NFL have involved either the Bengals, the Vikings, and or Kirk Cousins. And so that game almost wound up in a tie. Like, it was really close.
It was close. It went down to the wire of overtime.
Yeah. So they almost like
that is bizarre.
It really is, isn't it?
It is.
But one thing I will say is that the Bengals are coming off of a game where they turned the ball over 4 times, right? Yep. Joe Burrow threw 3 interceptions last week.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steelers have yet to have an interception this season. So ideally, we would see that trend continue and keep going. But I've also seen the Pittsburgh Steelers play games against, let's say Jay Cutler, who threw 4 interceptions the week before and then came back and looked like supremely efficient the next week.
Absolutely.
So, Burrow has been a little turnover prone in his career. But, we also have to remember that this is not a video game, right? These guys are not pre-programmed to make bad throws. These guys are competitors, and they're going to go back and work on things and be like, I can't make that mistake again. So the Bengals and Burrow specifically will be looking at, sometimes it's almost worse to have a bad game before someone plays you.
It feels that way, doesn't
it? Because it's like, those guys are kind of extra sensitive to their mistakes or extra paying attention to details because they just had a really bad game. And they want to come out and flip the script. Ideally, the Steelers would have a good enough defense that we can go out and continue that script. but we'll see what happens. At some point we got to get some turnovers here too, because that's what's really hurting the offense too, is that we haven't really had any short fields to work with yet this season. We haven't got a big kick return. We haven't got a defensive turnover, anything like that. So, we've gotten fumbles. We haven't gotten an interception where we've had a chance for a run back or anything like that. So, that would be getting turnovers off this team, and is something that is, I think, first and foremost what you have to do on defense, because not only does that get you off the field more, but also that helps just the overall mentality of your defense, that if you start getting turnovers and pressures and sacks, and then you start building confidence and you go start playing with some more swagger, which is what you have to play with swagger on defense. If you're playing passive, you're going to get picked apart, and Burrow is efficient enough that he can pick you apart. And they've got 3 good receivers. Jamar Chase, who they drafted in the first round, T. Higgins, who has wound up being a lot better of a receiver than I thought he was going to be. When I saw him at Clemson, he looked like a guy who was afraid to go over the middle and catch the ball, but he's a really good outside receiver. And then Tyler Boyd, who I've been watching since he was a freshman in high school, and pumping up how good he is. And he's turned into, one of the better slot receivers in the NFL, and is getting paid like it with a pretty handsome contract. So, great for Tyler. I'm really happy for him. I'm a little sad that he's in Cincinnati. But
of course,
nevertheless, I like to see him do well. Just not against the Steelers. But that being said, it's they're I think their defense is probably better than we give them credit for, but they're still not a great defense by any stretch of the word. This is a team we should be able to run the ball against. Chicago ran for 123 yards last week, so we should be able to run the ball against them. We'll see if we're able to. But we just, offensively, we got to keep more drives going. We got to pick up more third downs. We got to stay on the field longer. Got to limit the 3 and outs that we have. Got to win the turnover battle. It's all that stuff together, that we need to do. Although globally, I will say, coming into the season, I expected us to lose in Buffalo and then beat Oakland. So I kind of expected us.
I had us at 1-1 too.
Vegas, not Oakland, but I expected us to be 1-1 at this point as well. Just they kind of flipped the script and did it the other way. So I think that the changing expectations that we see on a week by week basis in the NFL and within the Steelers fan base, it's like, oh, they beat a team they shouldn't, they're going to be great. Oh, they lost to a team they shouldn't have lost to. But let's not forget either, like, the Raiders were an 8-8 team last year. So, like, they were good but not great. They were okay. They
at one point, I think they were, were they 6-2 last year at one point? They were really up there. And
they beat the Chiefs last year too. And so it's not like we lost to some schmuck team. It's not like losing to the Bengals last year was an awful loss. I would not put the Raiders loss anywhere near that category.
No.
They were 6-3. You were pretty close.
6-3. Okay.
Yep.
I have to believe Minka Fitzpatrick's going to play well Sunday. I think in large part he was kind of out of the game because of the attention that was paid to Darren Waller, and rightfully so. But clearly after the game that he played up in Buffalo, which was just an extraordinary performance, he did not have a good game last week. So I'm thinking he plays a lot better on Sunday, and I don't know what that means. I just think he'll play better. And I think we'll continue to see. And I think, to me, it's TJ Watt. If he is on the field, then I think instantly everybody else is better, because now you always have that constant threat of a guy getting to the quarterback, forcing the quarterback to get rid of the ball, forcing fumbles, which he's become so good at, rushing plays. I just, if he can go, I think it's a huge difference for our defense.
Yes. I completely agree with you there. And really, you're right. Early in that game against the Raiders, one of my big things that I was watching was like, okay, how are they going to defend Darren Waller?
Yep.
And they were basically either double teaming him or putting Cam Sutton on him every play. And so it was like either they're double teaming him with, like, a linebacker underneath, and then Edmonds or Minka over the top, or they've got Minka shading him. Like, they moved Minka around a ton against the Raiders, and it was mostly following Waller around. And they did a lot. Or if he was in single coverage, it was Cam Sutton that was playing him. Cam Sutton, when he moved into the slot, then you had Justin Lane and James Pierre on the outside. And the Raiders, to their credit, took advantage of it because they're like, all right, you're going to double this guy. We're going to throw to the other tight end, or we're going to throw to the running back out of the backfield that you're ignoring, or whatever it was, because we were putting so much attention on Darren Waller after the first game that he had, that we were ignoring running backs coming out of the backfield. We were, kind of ignoring. And I mean, Derek Carr made some pretty good throws too. He's
but he made smart throws too.
He made
a lot of smart throws.
Yes. And the thing I'll say about the Bengals is they don't have a good tight end. CJ Uzomah sucks. I mean, he's fine, but he's just a guy, right?
Right.
Joe Mixon's a good running back, but with 3 good receivers, they're going to play those 3 receivers pretty much all the time. They're going to be, we're going to be in our nickel defense the whole game. But because of the talent of the receivers, we pretty much just have to play a straight up defense. We're not going to be focusing so much on stopping just one guy. We have to play a balanced, even defense across the board, because if you double Jamar Chase, then you're singling T. Higgins and he's going to get wide open over the top. Or if you double Higgins, then you're leaving the slot open, and Tyler Boyd's going to beat you. Right. So, it's one of those things where we're just going to pretty much have to play them straight up and hope our guys can beat their guys, basically. It also simplifies things that then, Minka's not running all over the field and being like, where's Darren Waller? What do I got to do? Do I got to, who am I supposed to be following on this play? It's more, it's a read and react and trust your instincts kind of defense, rather than a, thinking, where's that guy?
Right.
Who's got him? Okay, I can go do this other thing. Or, it's less specialized to stop one player. And they did slow down Waller, but the other guys beat him.
Right. And that's good teams do that.
Yes.
Good teams find ways because their main guys are taken out. The other guys step up, and more power to them.
Well, and know as well as anyone living in Michigan that, for years, Calvin Johnson just feasted, but those teams sucked. Teams were basically like, we're going to let, and they didn't let you didn't let Calvin Johnson do anything. Calvin Johnson did what he wanted, but nevertheless, it was like, you can have a receiver that breaks the NFL receiving record, but still be a 4-12 team, because if other people can't do anything, then they can't do anything. And to use a basketball analogy, there were times when it was like, all right, Michael Jordan's going to get his points, or LeBron's going to get his points, but we got to stop the other guys from getting, their little chunks of points that wind up making the difference in the game. And, okay, Michael scores 50, Michael scores 60. Well, if they need 90 to beat us, or they need 110 to beat us, we got to stop them from scoring those other 40 or 50 points. Right. Or LeBron scores 60. We got to stop the other guys. Right. So, and it's kind of similar in the NFL, where it's like, okay, we stopped Darren Waller, but those other 4 guys beat us, right? So, maybe the better solution is you balance yourself across the board. And I think with the personnel the Bengals have, it kind of forces us to balance ourselves more across the board.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking too. And I think offensively, you mentioned a little earlier, we'll probably try to establish the run. At least I hope we do. And again, a lot of that's going to depend on who's playing quarterback too. And I have no reason to think it won't be Ben Roethlisberger at this point, but Friday's practice will go a long way towards determining that.
One other thing I will say though on establishing the run, right?
Yeah.
That you wrote a pretty good article on this after week 1, and we did it more in week 2. And this was one of the things that I really wanted to see out of the Matt Canada offense, and I have seen it so far, is that running plays to set up other plays, right? Like we ran that pitch play to Najee that I showed at the beginning that didn't really work. But then later in the game, we ran a play where Ben faked that pitch, and those 3 receivers on that one side were all running routes, and he was able to he did a little rollout and threw a ball and completed a pass for a first down. So it's like, okay, maybe that play didn't work, but you also ran that play so that when you get in that formation or run that motion, the guys on the field are thinking, okay, they ran this play before, I'm going to watch for this. So maybe they start leaning that way. Maybe they overcommit a little bit, and then you hit them on the backside with something else. And that was what we were missing last year with Randy Fichtner, was he did not run plays to set up other plays.
Right. Nothing complimentary.
Right. Yeah. Canada's done that so far. They've run, they get in a formation that they'll run the ball with Najee. They'll get in the same formation and run play action off of it later in the game. Those are good offensive tactics to do. That's good tactics. So my bigger concern is that, so I think from a play calling standpoint, Canada's doing an all right job. It's just, sometimes you just have to look at sometimes you can get so into the weeds of like how complicated something is that you miss the basics of, we don't have a hat on this side. We're running to the left and they've got 5 guys there and we've got 4. It's just some of those things, and some of that might be, I kind of wonder how much freedom Ben has on the field to change the play, right? How much control does Canada have over this is the play call versus how much control does Ben have at the line to check out of something, to audible to something else, to say, hey, wait a minute, this guy shifted down. They're in zone, not in man like we thought they would be, right? Because that play we showed at the beginning, if they're in man coverage and that defensive back follows Claypool across the formation, then we've got numbers, right? Then we've got a hat on that side, and you run that to the weak side, and we've got something going there. But they didn't. They shifted. They were in zone. So maybe Ben needs to be a little more on the details, and say, hey, okay, they're in a different defense than we thought they might be. We're going to either shift this run to the other side. We're going to audible out of it and run a different play, something like that.
Yeah.
But you're right. The running game's been bad so far. I'm not gonna cut hairs.
Yeah.
But we're also not that far away from it being good, right? Like the play we showed. If Kendrick Green makes that block, Najee might still be running right now. I mean, if he makes that block, he's got the outside and he's going to go a long way. So there's opportunities there, and I think we're close. It's that everybody needs to get on the same page and perform and execute.
And you got to build the consistency from there. Right. Get everybody going and go get moving on the consistent part. Make it an every down thing.
Yeah, and just, for the record on the show, I'm not throwing Kendrick Green under the bus. It was his mistake on that play. I could have picked another play where it was Kevin Dotson's mistake. I could have picked another play where it was, Chooks' mistake or Dan Moore's mistake or Trey Turns. Everybody on the line's making mistakes. It's just, the play that I happened to pick was Kendrick Green.
You could have pulled up the play in which Chooks gets literally turtled, I think, by Max Crosby. I mean, you could have picked that up, but anybody could have described that one for sure. So what do you got this week? Steelers victory? Are we looking at 1-2? What do you got this weekend?
I'm gonna say Steelers 27-23.
Woo!
So closer than is comfortable, but I think we pull it out in the end.
Yeah, I've got us 23-20.
Okay,
I wasn't going to go quite as high as you did, but that's where I'm at. And again, thanks everybody for tuning in here to the SCB Steelers Podcast presented by DEK Roofing Incorporated of South Florida. And of course, we will be back next week to wrap up the Steelers and the Bengals and look ahead to the Steelers' visit to Lambeau against Aaron Rodgers, the beatnik poet, whatever the hell he's trying to portray himself as these days. I really
future
don't know.
Jeopardy host Aaron Rodgers.
Maybe. Who knows? Yeah, better than Mayim Bialik or whatever the hell her name is. Anyway, for Ian, this is Mark, and we're signing off. And, I guess I end it this way. Hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck and fuck the Bengals.
Whoa!